Well, what about unstoppable, huh? I'm going to ask my panelists to just have a seat, and they will introduce themselves in a moment. But I don't know about you all. I took pages of notes from Carla Harris, and she dropped so many pearls that they ended up on the bottom of my shoes. So until we get my mic together, this panel is all about leading with leadership development. And I don't know about you, but being a constant learner is something we all need to be. Just because we graduated from college and getting our higher education degrees doesn't mean you don't stop learning. Learning is development. And so today we have an illustrious panel of leaders that are going to share some of their points and maybe some of their pearls that they can share relative to leadership development. And again, my name is Valerie Mason Cunningham, and I am a Leadership Westchester grad of 2018. And I was the former board chair of Volunteer New York and served on that board for 9 years. I currently am a trustee on the board of Mercy College, and I am the proud co-founder and co-CEO of Mason & Rice consultancy firm focused in on diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and belonging. And my business partner flew in from Chicago to be with me today. Emily Rice runs in the front. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to actually ask each of my panelists to introduce themselves, but let's give them a round of applause. Victoria Bruno, Carmen Martinez-Lopez, and Dante Hudson. And Leah, can we have a louder applause? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love interactive audiences. So here's the deal. You all have a program, and their bios are in the program. So you're going to have to read, or like Michelle said, you're going to have to Google them. So I'm not going to ask them to introduce themselves for what's in the bio. I want them to tell you something about themselves that's not in the bio. And I'm going to start with Victoria.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you to the United Way of Westchester and Putnam, to Valerie and my amazing co-panelists. One thing you won't find in my bio, well, actually two. I love superheroes and game nights.
Okay. And how did that come to be?
Well, Superman is my #1 favorite superhero because he turned back time, because he loved Lois Lane so much. So I hope to have that passion one day. And Scrabble is my favorite word game because I love to talk.
Well, that's awesome. Let's welcome Victoria.
Thank you.
And Carmen, what about you that's not in your bio that we should know?
Good afternoon, everybody. Something that some of you know, because you have been close to me, is that I learned English when I was 40 years old, 40. And my second important part is that I was a kindergarten teacher after I finished my high school in my country, Colombia.
And an amazing fact about Carmen is I was in her office for the first time, and I was admiring this artwork from Colombia, her hometown. And she said she lived in a city of Medellin. And I was like, Medellin? My cousin just moved from Chicago down there. And I said, and she says, well, get him on the phone so you can introduce me. So just a quick story. I get him on the phone. He's in a taxi cab on his way to a luncheon with a driver that could not speak English. So he doesn't speak Spanish. So they're trying to get to this restaurant, and I go, Carmen, you got to intervene. So now she's on the speakerphone talking to the driver, helping my cousin get to the restaurant. So that was like an incredible divine intervention. So
I love it.
she's a helper. Dante, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. And Dante, I just have to tell the story because I saw him in the lobby. I had no idea who he was. I've only seen him on Zoom. I didn't know who he was. And I just said, "You're fabulous." So when he walks back here and goes, "This is Dante," I go, "Are you kidding me?" I had no idea. Dante, what do we need to know about you?
Well, it's funny because you say that. One thing that's not on the, well, first, hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm just going into the story. But one thing about me that I would say is I'm actually the owner and operator of the Hudson Look, which is a style company that I started about a year ago. And it's actually a play on my last name, so the Hudson Look, my last name's Dante Hudson, so yeah, I tried to be a little clever there, as you can see. I started this style company just because, obviously, you know, I love to style myself, I love to style other people. But one thing that, like, a lot of people always ask me is, like, what is your style? Like, how do you define your style? And it was always, like, three words that I would always say, however I'm feeling. And literally, so whenever I wake up in the morning, however I'm feeling, that's how I style myself. So the slogan of the Hudson Look is style is not a look, it's mood. So it's literally whatever the mood that I'm feeling, that's just how I'm showing up. So this is how I showed up today because that's my mood.
Well, it seems like a very bright, vibrant mood today, so thank you for that. You know, we had some really serious pearls drop today, and development is a critical plank on any leader. So whether you're leading people or you're just leading yourself, you're a leader. So I just want to establish that. So raise your hand with me if you're a leader. I need to see every hand in the house raised. Thank you. Because we are all leaders. And what's great about our nonprofit sector here is we have three incredible leadership programs that are offered. One is from the Business Council of Westchester, the Star Power program, which Victoria is a graduate of. We also have Nonprofit Westchester's Emerging Leaders program, which Dante is a graduate of. And we also have Volunteer New York's Leadership Westchester program, which Carmen and myself are both graduates of. So I'm going to throw this to the panelists because a lot of you may or may not know about these programs. And these programs are significant to the nonprofit sector, and they bring different things. So I'd like to maybe start with Dante and ask you the question about Emerging Leaders program with Nonprofit Westchester. Give us a little bit about what the program is and what did you gain from that program?
So the Emerging Leaders program is an 11-month program for nonprofit professionals where they have the opportunity to travel to different nonprofit organizations in and around Westchester and learn about social and systemic issues that relate to just like everyday life. So as an example, one topic that's discussed is like food security over at Feed in Westchester. Feed in Westchester, shout out to Feed in Westchester. And also how to create an anti-racism workspace at our organization, YWCA, White Plains and Central Westchester. Shout out to the YWCA and the staff there. And, you know, I had to give a shout out to them because, you know, I probably wouldn't have a job if I go back about it. So the question as it relates to what did I gain from that experience, you know, I learned a lot. And I would say that for me, I realized that there were other people within the nonprofit sector that have the same challenges, that have the same issues, that have the same successes as we do. And I also realized that, like, here in Westchester, we do a lot of good work. We do a lot of good work in the nonprofit sector, and it's something that we should be proud of. So I had the opportunity to travel to so many different organizations. And I think it was like year 2 or 3 within my tenure at the YW. So, yeah.
Okay, so getting the opportunity to explore other organizations that you may not have otherwise known about gave you some insights into how their leadership ran. Did I understand that correctly?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then how did you bring that back to your position that you were in? And from that learning development, can you give us any insights into what changed in your perspective of leadership?
Yeah, I would say one thing that stood out to me was like the power of collaboration, and that, again, understanding that there are other organizations that do very similar work to the YWCA. So one thing that I took back was understanding the power of collaboration, the power to reach out to other organizations, because there's so much power in numbers, right? And us having the ability to collaborate. And then just having the ability to just understand, how other organizations are navigating, how their structure is within their organization, how I can apply that to my day-to-day. I don't remember specifically what organization really stood out to me, but I can say that even looking at before and after COVID, just understanding the growth within organizations, including the YWCA, and understanding that, the understanding the power in collaboration, understanding the power in numbers, understanding the power in structure, mission, vision. That was one thing that really stood out to me that I really took back because I remember very vividly one of my first session was at West Hab. Rich Nightingale put on I didn't see him today, so I can't give him a shout out, but Rich Nightingale put on a session on mission and vision and understanding the mission and vision and the values within your organization. I would say since then, how I apply my own leadership style is important to me because I apply my own values to my leadership style and everything that I do. So that was one thing, now that I'm remembering it, that I took back.
That's awesome. How many in the audience are currently in Emerging Leaders Program right now? Okay, we've got some hands. How many people may be interested in Emerging Leaders Program? Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. These are opportunities for all of you. So I'm going to go to Carmen, and I'm going to ask the same question, Carmen, because you're a graduate of Leadership Westchester. And what was that program? What is it? And what did you gain from it?
The focus of the Volunteer New York Leadership Westchester is in developing the authentic persona. That is the difference. And I attended the program in the academic year 2018-2019. And the main benefit for my leadership development was to reflect about my vision, mission, values, and volunteerism. And I am applying, practicing my values, my vision, my mission, my volunteerism in everyday activity. Well, when I am in my office attending my students, or I am in New Rochelle on behalf of Volunteer New York, cleaning the parks. And I am practicing my values in every action that I am executing every day.
Wow, and that's an important statement. Yeah, give it up, because you built off of what Dante said around your vision, mission, you added values to it, but you say you practice it every day. Give us an example of what you mean by that.
Practicing every day. I am the dean of the School of Business and Professional Careers at SUNY Westchester Community College. I have a big responsibility. I have a stewardship, and I have a commitment to make the life of my students, my faculty, in general, the people of Westchester County, be different, to help in that social mobility. In how I am practice every day, when a student is coming to my office with a problem, I am taking care of my students. I am taking them. If the situation is related to financial aid, I am not going to call financial aid. I'm going to say, Dante, let's go together to fix the situation. And that's my life. If a father, a mother is coming to my office, the same. They need to have the FERPA authorization in order to sit down with me. After I clarify that they have the FERPA authorization, I am sitting down with them, I am listening to them, and they understand that I will take care of them because I am a practitioner of leadership, but also I am a practitioner of love. And everything that I am doing every day is with love for the people around me.
That's awesome. Yes, that is awesome. So thank you, Carmen, for that. How many people in the house going through Leadership Westchester program? Okay, we have some in the back. How many people are interested in it? Okay, terrific. Again, another great program for consideration. So Victoria, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, the Business Council of Westchester's Star Power program, you're a graduate of. Give us a little snippet of what that program is and what have you taken away from that program for your leadership development?
Sure. The Business Council's Star Power class had a huge impact on my life. I'm a graduate of Star Power 1, class of 2020, and I say Star Power 1 because it has evolved since my class. Now there's a Star Power 2. Star Power 1 is going into its 8th or 9th year. 2020 was the start of the pandemic, so half of my classes were online, but half of them started in person. We focused on EQ, that is your emotional intelligence and how to manage your emotions, whether it's in your professional setting or even a personal. We learned self and social awareness as well as self and social management. And what I mean by that is, what are my strengths? What's my style? What triggers me? How can I read other people's body language, have empathy, and how to clearly communicate for my career success? Most importantly, we created a career blueprint. So it was an action plan. I was extremely fortunate that King's invested in my potential, and the Business Council gave me the tools to meet new people, specifically through the Star Power and the Rising Star programs. And they taught me how to build positive relationships with the fellow Business Council of Westchester community. And I was recently named the chairperson for Star Power. So.
All right, well, let's get up the new chair of Star Power.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And so obviously you too learned about your vision, your values, how to build relationships. What other aspects did impact from your business management and leadership today?
How much time do we have?
Not too much time, so just maybe one.
Yeah. It really, I'm a woman in construction and real estate, so I am the minority in the office. So sometimes to just sit back and learn from the seasoned male mentors that I have, that's really one thing I've learned, is to just sit back, take it in, and learn from your fellow leaders.
That's awesome. So, yes, let's give it up. So, Business Council of Westchester Star Power Program. Anybody currently in that program right now?
Got a couple in the audience.
Okay, a couple. And anybody interested in that program? All right, very good. So, leadership development is an ongoing activity, and it's one that we take responsibility for personally. You should not wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder. Again, being your authentic self, something Carla told us, bring it to your management team and say, I'm interested in wanting to continue to learn how I can be a better leader. And so with that being said, you guys kind of talked a little bit about it, but I want to dig a little deeper into it. What is your leadership style? And maybe Victoria, I'll start with you on this one. What is your leadership style?
So, to be honest, I pull for leaders that I admire. I think first and foremost that you need to treat others with the same respect you expect to be treated yourself. I've learned that it's important to be adaptable, compassionate, and to be fair, which doesn't always mean that you're going to get your way. Most importantly, I think that it's important to know the balance between hard work and fun. To be approachable, to problem solve with your team, to help people, that's really what leadership development is about. And my style includes just remembering what it was like when I was first starting out. I mean, I still feel like I'm still starting out, and I have so much to learn from everyone in this room. So I would say that's my leadership style, is to pull from who I admire.
And that's an awesome pearl that you just dropped, because when you're looking towards leaders that you admire and that inspire you, and you want to aspire some of those characteristics and traits, go after it. Ask those questions and be engaged in those conversations so that can help you learn and grow as well. Carmen, how about you? What is your leadership style?
My leadership style is characterized by empowering my teammates. They are part of my team. They are my teammates, like the classmates. Do you remember that when you were a student? It is the same concept that I manage. And one way to make a substantial difference in our roles as leaders is to guide our teammates to cultivate relationships that will impact their personal and professional role. In the leadership literature, all the time, we are talking about relationships. But how we can cultivate the relationships, that is the key part in creating that good environment with the members of the team.
So that's an important point. You know, as a leader, you need to create the environment so that people will follow, but also will contribute in any way they can. As leaders, that is something that is so important. How we show up, whatever the energy is that we bring, is going to be attracted to our teams, to our colleagues, to our business partners, to our donors, to our customers. And so we need to make sure that we're showing up and being able to provide that environment for success. And that is a part of our leadership style. So thank you, Carmen, for that. Dante, I'm going to ask you the same question, because obviously as leaders, we can all have a different approach. So I'd be curious to know, what's your leadership style?
Well, I would say that my leadership style is very similar to my other panelists here, but how I would define my leadership, I would say I would define it as a servant leader. For me as a leader, it's important for me to role model positive behavior, to show up for my staff and my colleagues, and to always just model that positive behavior as I mentioned. But also, there's two other things. One, always apply charitable assumption. Always just assume that the person has good intentions, that there's always assume the right thing. But also, second to that is lead with empathy. And what I mean by that is that for so long, even when I was in school, in grade school, we were always taught the golden rule: treat others how you would want to be treated. But I don't want to apply the golden rule anymore. I want to apply the platinum rule. And the platinum rule for me is I want to treat others how they want to be treated. I want to show up for them how they want me to show up for them. So those are just like some traits that I have as being a servant leader.
And servant leadership is so important, right? I mean, that's what we're here for, is to serve others and to be able to lead, to serve others the team is serving too. I think that's extremely important. And, you know, when we started talking, a lot of you mentioned the word values and how values show up. I'm curious now to understand, how does your values show up in your leadership and through your development, and have they changed over time? And Carmen, maybe we'll start with you on that one.
The values that my parents infused in me since I was a little girl are the same that I am practicing today. These values are respect, collaboration, and inclusion. Those values are my framework for all my daily actions. When I am confronting challenges, I look for the learning opportunity that specific challenge is teaching to me as a person, as a member of my community, as a member of my immediate family and extended family. And you know my extended family? My extended family is SUNY Westchester Community College and Volunteer, New York. Those are my extended families.
That's awesome. How about you, Victoria? What are some of your values, and how have they changed over time, or have they stayed the same?
So values has been something that's been important to me since I was young, growing up in an Italian, Catholic, old school household. Somehow I manifested a firm that holds 10 core values to each employee. And they range from teamwork to accountability to helping each other. But throughout my journey, I would say what's helped me along is taking initiative, so going the extra mile. Communication is key. Remember, I told you I love to talk, so sometimes I will over-communicate or ask a question that some people might think is stupid, but I don't believe in that. Sometimes you just need clarity. And integrity has always been at the top of my list. Again, going back to being a female in real estate and construction, sure, you can have a pretty face and a smile, but if you don't have anything to back it up, your intelligence, that's what makes other people value you as well. I don't think my values have changed, but I like to think that I pull from whether it's the 10 core values that King's Capital Construction holds, or depending on who I'm talking to, or tailoring to my audience. So.
Okay, I mean, obviously, being a female in a male-dominated industry is not easy, but it sounds like she's taking it head on and is not fearing anything.
No.
As Carla said, fear's not even your vocabulary, which is a good thing.
My dad told me to always have thick skin, and I think that's what takes me through the industry.
It's amazing, too, when you think about your childhood, some of those little nuggets that are now coming up for you in now your later life, and you say, oh, that's kind of why I went through that, because it was really preparing me for now versus the then. Did I get you, Dante, for the values? No, okay, no, I want to know your values. Very curious about your values, and have they changed over the years?
I'll answer the second question first. I wouldn't say that they've changed over the years, but I would say how I apply my values. I've learned how to adapt and change within like the different seasons of my leadership. So I would say there's two values that come to mind for me. And the funny thing is, because when Ms. Carla was speaking earlier, and her first pearl was around authenticity, right? And she was talking a lot about authenticity. I was listening. I want you to know that I was listening, but my partner did text me. And when he texted me, he said to me that, she's talking a lot about authenticity. That's something that you always talk about. So my number one value is authenticity, because for me, I'm going to show up as my most authentic self, always, because this is who I am, and I have an expectation similar to what Ms. Carla talked about, that like if I'm showing up as my authentic self, I have an expectation that everyone else around me is going to do the same. So that is my number one. That is my number one value. The second to that is creating a culture of accountability. For me, I hold myself very much accountable to the work that I do, to the things that I say, how I show up for folks. So and so I hold myself accountable, but similarly, I want those around me, my staff, my colleagues, my friend, my family, my partner, whoever it may be, I want them to hold me equally as accountable. Because if I'm committed to something, if I said I'm going to do something, I want you to hold me to that. So for me, those are my two. I can go on and on, but my two most important values are authenticity and accountability.
And those are two great points, because being authentic and you allowing that environment to be authentic is that energy that attracts. And so you're being open and vulnerable, and you're saying to your team, be open and be vulnerable, because that's the only way we can work. And that's great leadership. And accountability is something I think is a word that in life we don't talk about anymore. Nobody's accountable for anything. It's always the other guy's problem or the other girl's problem or somebody else's problem. But accountability is a critical aspect in leadership. And we all should be accountable for the things that we do every single day and the impacts that we're making on other people's lives because of all of the work that we do in the nonprofit space. So I thank you for that. You know, this world is changing, and it's an amazing world that we live in the nonprofit space. It is a very big business, nonprofit. And we treat it like it's a secondary child. Like, you know, we shouldn't go through leadership development courses, or we shouldn't have training, or we shouldn't have like a Carla Harris as a keynote speaker that, you know, it's not an IBM or, you know, fill in the blank other corporate company. But the fact that the United Way and other business partners are saying this is important in the sector is something that everyone take advantage of. And I'm so happy to know that this show was sold out, because it's so important to your development. And so development is important. Where does self-care come into the equation? Because clearly you all have significant roles, and you can talk about that if you'd like, the roles that you have, and the learning development portion of it, how that impacts you. But I'd love to know, where does self-care come into the equation as leaders? You want to start, Victoria?
Sure, I'd be happy to. But actually, before I could answer this question, going back to accountability, there was a book that our office read called Extreme Ownership. I highly recommend it. It's by 2 Navy SEALs. It's okay to make mistakes, own it, make it good. So I just wanted to add that if you like to read. As far as self-care, you know, my main responsibility is managing your business, but really I am like a jack of all trades in the office. So I think it goes back to balancing hard work and fun. Prioritization is the key to time management. Sunlight and fresh air are my best friends, and I recommend it for you if you ever feel the weight of the day, whether it's an email that you didn't expect or a meeting didn't go your way. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from your desk and go outside for some fresh air. Outside of my office, hobbies are so important. So anything that can, you know, check your brain off, whether it's painting, my favorite's a movie, reading, journaling, highly recommend, even gym, you know, whenever you can. So, yeah, self-care is important.
It is important. Dante?
So I would say for me, self-care, like, it's such a hard question. Maybe. Let me start by saying that sitting in the seat that I'm in, as I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the YWCA, White Plains Central Westchester, and you know, and it is a privilege. Let me just start by saying that. It is a privilege to sit in this seat. It is a privilege to be in this role for a variety of different reasons. But just, I have the opportunity to serve and to role model positive behavior, everything that I talked about before. But also as part of sitting in the seat, this role can sometimes be uncomfortable, right? Sitting in a C-suite, you have to have difficult conversation. You have to navigate certain things. You have to be directed in how you apply your leadership. So some of that could be exhausting, right? And then we talk about self-care, but the first part before self-care is just acknowledging the seat that you're in and acknowledging the space that you're in, right? And sometimes that when we talk about balance, you know, in order for me to be a successful leader, I can't work the 9-to-5. This is not going to happen, right? Because I have to be able and willing to show up for my staff. I have to be able to constantly learn. I have to be able to just adapt to the ever-changing world. So the balance is sometimes difficult, but in terms of how I apply my self-care, for me personally, is just, you know, being self-aware and really self-reflecting. And that's how I apply my self-care, just because I'm in a constant state of learning. I'm always in a constant state of learning, and I always want to learn new things. And I just want to understand, I want to have the ability to understand what happened. Excuse me. It could be in my personal life or my professional life. So for me, self-reflecting is a part of my self-care, because I feel like I become a better person when I reflect and I can change whatever it is that I need to change.
Very good thoughts, because, you know, having that moment of reflection is a self-care moment, because you're taking the time to just power down and really think through what happened.
Right.
And one of the things that I learned over the course of my leadership journey from one of my managers was bake in 5 minutes of your schedule every day to just close the door and think. And I don't know about you, but I was not doing that, you know. And to say I'm going to do it versus putting it on my schedule to do it are two different things. I mean, how many of us say we're going to go to the gym and we never go? Be honest. How many of us really put in our daily planner that 6 o'clock in the morning is gym time and you actually go? Yeah, it's a behavior that you have to train yourself to do. So taking a moment for reflection, that's a self-care activity that you should do. So we're going to wrap this up real quickly and get into some Q&As from the audience.
I would like to share what I am doing for self-care.
Please, Carmen.
Go ahead, Ms. Harmon.
And then we won't have any more questions.
Okay.
That's intentional.
My day starts at 5:30 in the morning. I do yoga in my home from 5:30 to 6:30. Okay? Yes. And then after I go to my office, from my home in Rochelle, going to my office in Valhalla, I am using that time about the beautiful things that I will do that day for my students, my faculty, and my community in Westchester County. And I am coming to my office with a lot of energy. And then I have in my Outlook focus time. My administrative assistant, she's very good in keeping me accountable with for my focus time. Dean, it's time for your focus time. Please proceed to do what you have to do. And in my office with my team, we have this commitment. Every 30 minutes, we go outside. We have beautiful campus in Valhalla. And then every 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it depends, 1 hour, we go outside for 5 minutes just to contemplate the beauty of the campus. And then we go back to our office to continue with our duties and responsibilities. Take care of yourself. nobody is going to take care of yourself. Period.
Again, it's habit forming when you are consistently doing these things and not just think about it, but you have to act upon it. And the only way you can do that is putting it on your calendar, making it meaningful, being accountable to it in order to do that. So leadership development, you got 3 great programs here in your nonprofit space. Leadership development is ongoing. It's looking at your role models, people that inspire you, and it's also showing up every day, no matter what. Get your mind right, set it straight, and stay focused forward. So I'm going to allow for some questions in the audience to our panelists, but let's give it up for Victoria, Carmen, and Dante. I mean, stand on your feet, guys. Stand on your feet for these guys. Let's give them a standing ovation. My leaders up here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, do we have some questions in the audience? We have microphones out here. Anybody? Question? Right down here. Thank you, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. So, as you were sharing, you're sharing about all of the things that you've been able to do thus far, participating in the programs and being the self that you are today. I ask you to take a moment, look at yourself in the mirror. Yes, you're right. Look at yourself in the mirror. And what would you say to the Dante who's 10 years old, the Carmen who's 10 years old, the Victoria who's 10 years old? What would you say to them?
Be yourself. Be yourself.
Ooh, scared me, Miss Carmen.
No,
Be myself.
No, that is an excellent question. And yes, I have to piggyback off of being yourself. There are 2 pieces of advice I would tell young Victoria. The first and foremost is lost patience cannot be recovered. So don't react so quickly and think before you speak. And if I could quote Heidi Winslow, who's a friend, colleague, but also the current Rising Star Leadership Chair for the Business Council of Westchester, she told me, never doubt yourself. Remember that you belong exactly in the rooms that you are in, because eventually, Victoria, you're going to find your purpose.
Dante?
So for me, I would say I'm a little bit of a storyteller, so forgive me if I'm going to land a plane. Just forgive me as I tell the story. But as I look back and as I reflect, you know, I had a lot of insecurities growing up. I'm a child of adversity, and for me, I was always the youngest person in the room, right? And I was always fearful of being too black or being too gay or, you know, people not looking at me as I had enough experience because I was so young, right? So one thing that I would say to my younger self is that, yeah, you belong here. You belong in this room, and you're going to give them the full version of yourself. And I started to really realize and started to come into myself, me being my most authentic self, when I realized that a lot of these things that I'm thinking about in my head is just like social construct. Like, what does it mean to be too black? What does it mean to be too gay? What does it mean to be whatever it is that people are saying? So I kept saying to myself, like, yeah, no, you belong in this room, and you're going to show the full version of yourself, the most authentic version of yourself. So while I wasn't 10, Michelle, that question was about me being 10. I'm not saying that to myself as 10 years old. Let me just keep that in mind. But I do reflect it. I do reflect earlier in my career as I was navigating in spaces and sometimes put it on a facade or sometimes like being involved in like imposter syndrome. So, I make myself vulnerable in saying that out loud just because, it's a struggle. It's a struggle with perhaps all of us that have identities, that have cross identities, and something that I struggled with earlier in my career. So, yeah.
That's a good one.
Do we have time for one more question in the audience? Yeah, one more. Okay, one more question. It's coming.
Thank you,
Great.
thank you. This is wonderful. Esta pregunta es para la doctora, Dr. Martinez Lopez. I believe wholeheartedly that representation matters. There's a lot of Latinas in the room because we are serving hearts. You have a very storied career, and it's so much that I admire. I would love to hear from you if you could speak to us Latinas and give us your pearls of wisdom as you came up in your profession.
Be yourself.
I am looking Dante because he attended my presentation at SUNY Westchester Community College last week, where I shared my academic journey from learning English at the University of South Carolina to pursue my PhD in international business at the University of Texas in 5.5 years. To join to the BNCC, Borough Manhattan Community College at City University of New York as a tenure-track professor, assistant professor, associate professor, full professor, and the co-director of the business department with more than 7,000 students. I am coming from a middle-class family from my country, and as I shared with you before, why I came here to learn English, because I was a consultant, a faculty member and executive in Colombia, and I submitted a proposal to a multinational company, and the president of the multinational company asked to my president that if I, at that time, do you know if Carmen speak English? He said, I am not sure, but I will ask her. Of course, I didn't speak English. And then the condition was to deliver the strategic plan in English. Then I made a decision that day, and I said to the president of the college, I am leaving, I'm going to learn English, I'm going to pursue my PhD in international business, and this is my plan. I'm telling you, you cannot give authorization to anybody to say that you cannot do something. The world is in your hands. Do it.
Snap it up, snap it up.
Tienen que hacerlo. Nadie lo va a hacer por ustedes. Y no se sientan inferiores a nadie porque tienen acento. The beauty of us is our accent, okay?
Yes, yes. Yes, that's leadership in the making, and boy, oh boy, are you a great leader. So let's give it up for my panelists again. Victoria, Carmen, Dante. Remember those Leadership Westchester, Emerging Leaders, and Star Power. Thank you all very much for giving us the opportunity.